Hey, what's up, guys? It's Nick here. We have another Coast to Coast podcast this week. James and I hopped on Instagram Live to talk about all kinds of stuff. And we touch on portfolio stuff, freelance stuff. I think you'll enjoy it. Kind of a casual episode. Of course, we want to thank our promotional partner, Let's Design Daily, on Instagram. They post amazing work from designers across the world, so check them out if you haven't already. And hop on the Discord. I want to hear what you guys think about this episode. I want to hear your thoughts and conversations over there. Of course, if you have a question, feel free to email us, minordetailspodcast@gmail.com. And of course, subscribe on YouTube, give us a follow on Spotify, rate 5 stars on Apple Podcast. You guys know the deal. Shout out to Kiyoshi the Kid, too, for the amazing intro and outro. And let's run that right now. Hey, welcome to Minor Details. I'm Nick.
And I'm James.
And we are two industrial designers across the country.
Sweating the small stuff.
And we're doing a little bit of a new podcast style this week.
Yes.
We are live on Instagram, so I guess if you're listening to the podcast, you probably are a fan of the Instagram too. So maybe you've already listened to the podcast. I'm not really sure. We're just trying it out. But
yeah, we're
how you
mostly trying it out because we had too many technical difficulties with Zoom, and so we thought we would just record this way instead.
Yeah, Zoom was not being friendly to us today, so
Not at all. What's
but
up?
yeah, it's also weird. We have comments coming in. I don't know. I mean, maybe we can get to some of the questions. I think Instagram Live is always a little bit crazy with all the comments, but how you been though, man?
Not too bad. Just still chilling out here in Los Angeles, waiting out the pandemic.
Yeah.
We're on Baby Watch 2020.
That's
Countdown,
right, dude.
countdown
That's
to
right.
baby.
Yeah.
I'm currently sitting in what will be the future nursery.
Oh, okay. Cool. That's awesome. Are you getting all kinds of like supplies and like cribs and things?
Oh yeah, we got cribs. We got cribs in our crib. Not yet actually, but we've got we've gotten some stuff from family and friends, which has been great. Actually got the Lalo stroller that Visibility
nice. Okay.
helped design, and so yeah, it's been interesting. I mean, there's literally like not a day that goes by that we don't get a package. And there was one day where I think we got like 4 different packages at 4 separate times. They just kept coming.
I'll tell you what, man. I feel like everyone's getting packages nowadays. People can't go outside, just ordering everything. I've started ordering some like pantry items. I don't know. It's trying to order as much as I can without having to go outside.
I know. It's weird how much decontamination, how much wiping, like alcoholic wipes, are you using on your packages, or none at all?
None. I mean, for me, I definitely wash my hands after I touch packages and things. There's a certain level of obsession that it seems almost absurd to get to.
Right.
And I'm just not there yet. And thankfully, it seems from the numbers that I've been reading currently, I guess that will probably date the podcast a bit, but, beginning of May, it seems like it's starting to decline here in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So slowly coming out of it, hopefully, at least for now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting times, but we gotta move on. Gotta keep living our lives. How have you been living your life otherwise?
Been good. Been working from my room, and try not to go to the studio too much. Maybe once a week just to check on it. If I need to print something, I'll go. But yeah, I maybe the one update I have is I selected an intern. I
Oh,
think last podcast we had mentioned that I was looking for an intern, so I did select that person. So I thought I could share some insights about that.
yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Let's go to, I mean, how many applicants did you get?
I got 100,
Okay.
and
And
I only.
how long on average did you look at a portfolio?
All right, so my process was, I think, so I posted a story and an Instagram post that
Mm.
said, "Hey, I'm looking for an intern." I believe that's it. I think I just posted one of each. Got 100 submissions. I set up an email filter so that anyone that puts internship in the subject, it filtered to an email.
Mm.
And then I think I waited a week or maybe more, and then picked a day, like one day, and just like clicked through all 100 of them as fast as I could. Like I would open up the email and click the very first link. I didn't read it at all. I didn't read the cover letter. I didn't even look at the Instagram.
Yeah.
I would just immediately click the link that they had, to see their work, and then I would review the work like briefly. I would say 30 seconds maybe, just to decide like, is this is this like viable? Like, is this person like, is this an option? And if it was an option, then I selected them. And so I think like I had like, I don't know, 30 applicants make it to the second tier.
Yeah.
And then from there, I took some time and actually like sat down and searched through the website, and then also went back and read their cover letter, and checked their Instagram, and picked 10 people to Zoom call with. But like, I think that's a really key insight to realize that like I had 100 applicants and I looked at each website for 30 seconds. Like, if your website does not convey good ideas and good skills within 30 seconds, you're
You're
out.
done.
Like if you have good ideas at the bottom of your website, it's done. You're done. Like, I'm not scrolling all the way down there, you know? I'll tell you one thing. There was a few things that like caught me. I think the biggest thing was just standing out from the crowd. Like, I'll tell you what, there was one person that rickrolled me.
What, like literally rickrolled you?
Yes, they said, "Here is my website," and the link was to a rickroll.
Oh my gosh.
Rick Astley,
Yeah.
and I was so impressed by that they made it to the final round. Unfortunately they didn't get selected, but I at least had a call with them and was like,
Wait,
"Hey,
so when did you actually
props
see
to
their
that."
work? When?
They also had decent work too. So it the it was just such a good, I don't know. It's just like, that thing is memorable, right? Like, it doesn't matter. It definitely was a bold move, and it could have been a bad bold move for many
Yeah.
people. But I think they knew their audience. They knew me. They knew that like, hey, I'm casual. Like, here I'm on Instagram asking for interns. But the beginning of the email was like, "Hey, here's my website," and then the next paragraph was like, "Here's some generic text that makes it look like I'm actually writing a thoughtful, like, paragraph about a cover letter." It was pretty bold. I will say it was pretty kind of, it was definitely bold, cocky maybe, but hey, like, it got my attention. So
Yeah. Um, and so you down selected from 100 to how many?
to 30.
To
The
30?
the first 100 was like 30-second quick pass,
Yeah.
and then 30 was like, all right, let me take a few minutes and look at these projects and kind of see, hey, is this person somebody I want to talk to for a half hour. I will say, okay, I'm gonna read through some of these things that I found. There was a lot of like lay minutiae kind of design. There was a lot
Mm.
of just like, uh, renders that looked pretty much like they're ripped off of lay minutiae, which, that's a whole conversation that we don't need to get into that right now. But I think the key there is that, again, they just didn't stand out, right? Like, we've all seen this stuff done overdone a gazillion times. The freaking rounded rectangle with some, fancy, nice, plastic material on it.
Yeah.
I was really interested in people who had interesting projects, like a
Yeah.
project that was like super interesting, but also again conveyed that idea in that like quick 30-second like look. Um, Another thing that caught my eye was videos. There was a few people that had videos, and for whatever reason, I tended to stop and watch these videos as opposed to, you know, pictures and stuff.
You're talking about videos explaining the project?
Yeah. So like if they had like a video of their prototype, I would definitely watch that. And I think the thing is like part of that is because they built their project too. Like it's a physical thing that they could make a video of. So I think there's kind of twofold there. I mean, you could definitely make a video of like animations of a render, but still, I think most of the videos were like physical objects that people were, playing around with.
Yeah. And what would you say the quality, would you say that there was like a quality to the video, or would you say it's like it was kind of, they were just rough and ready kind of demonstrative videos?
Rough and ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing super fancy, nothing super polished. Sometimes it was just like a cardboard model and like just a video of how it worked.
Yeah. Yeah, I
On a
think
night, on a background.
I think we forget sometimes how powerful motion is, especially when it comes to product and product that has, maybe especially if one transforms in some sort of way or has a certain way of functioning that just like you can't really capture.
Yeah. I mean,
Uh,
that's why I'm a fan of GIFs too.
yeah. Oh, you're the GIF Meister.
I think that was generally it. I think another really key thing was just good photography. People who took the time to just set up a nice white background and got some natural light in there really stood out. I obviously I'm speaking all these things from my perspective, and that's what I like. So I'm kind of looking for things that reinforce my ideals.
Right.
But still, like I don't think my ideals are that far off from what other people like.
Yeah.
So I definitely think there's some nuggets in there that could definitely be taken and used.
Did anybody that didn't get the internship, did they reach back out for feedback, and did you provide
Yes.
feedback?
I'm pretty sure all of them reached back out.
Oh no, all 100?
No. All I interviewed 10. I Zoom called with 10.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even get to that.
Okay.
Yeah, so I finally selected 10 people that I was like, okay, these people, I think all of them could be good interns. Let me talk to them. And I realized, like, I think maybe a big thing that I took away from this is that, it's about the personality too, right? Like, I think the portfolio gets you the call, but the call is really for you to express yourself, to be who you are,
Right.
and connect. So like, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, like everyone was great on the Zoom call. It was hard. It was really hard to make a decision. But like, it's just who did I connect with and have a good conversation with. It
Right.
wasn't really about like, let's walk through your projects. Like I see your projects. I don't really want to, hear you talk about like how you sanded a piece of, wood or whatever. It was really about like, hey, how's it going? I think another way one person stood out to me was they were outside. They had like, everyone else is in their room, and there was one person that like took the time to like sit outside and like had a nice background. So that also stood out to me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean those are things. I think like the key takeaways is like you got to stand out, and then the other key takeaways like when you do the Zoom calls, like it's all about your personality. I will say also, and this is very much I think a subjective thing, and I think everyone's gonna be different on this, but I feel like I was more attracted to people who were very enthusiastic about the job.
Right.
Really seemed excited about coming and interning with me. And I realized that I realized that people may not seem excited, but they really are. And it's hard to, some people aren't as outgoing as others. So I know that's like an iffy thing,
Yeah.
but if you are not outgoing, I would just say like try to really push it. Try to be really excited and happy
Right.
when you're on the Zoom call,
Yeah.
because it just was a contrast. I would call one person and they were like, yes, like how's it going? Like I'm really excited to talk to you. And then I'd call another person and they were certainly happy to talk to me, but it wasn't like as like, oh my gosh, what it wasn't like that energy.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean
And it's interesting, right? It's interesting.
there's nothing more infectious than genuine enthusiasm.
For sure.
And I don't know, it can be hard to fake if you are actually faking it.
Yeah.
And that kind of like touches on projects where you're not necessarily so enthusiastic about it, but you have to sell an idea.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it just makes me think of like, oh gosh, who's that one kid who was just having a rough day and then they got on the phone with Nick Baker, lost their shot.
Yeah, and that's true. It's like they could have been the one, but that day was just
Yeah.
not
It,
going
it's a
good for them, and that sucks. Like I don't know how to solve that problem.
you can't really unless you acted as if you were a multi-tiered organization and had multiple interviews, but you yourself came in as different characters. Like, I'm the head of Nick Baker Studios. Oh, you're gonna have to talk to the creative director of Nick Baker Studios, and then you like put on a mustache, and then you have a separate call.
Oh man.
You do like 3 different calls, 3 different interviews as different people.
Yeah.
That's when you really get a good sense of some of the possible intern.
Yeah, that seems quite a lengthy
It's
process to
trust
go
me,
through for
Nick,
just an
it's
intern.
worth it.
Oh man. Well, we're doing Instagram Live, so I thought we'd try to ping a little bit back and forth here. We have a question, or kind of a comment/question, along this topic of how to be enthusiastic. And this person says, this is Og Magnus, and they say, but should you be faking it? If you are not an enthusiastic person, should you try to fake enthusiasm? Like, I'm sure you're enthusiastic, but how do you fake enthusiasm? Like, how do you do that?
I don't know if it's as much faking it as it is finding the thing to be enthusiastic about. Just like, I think a lot of times,
That's a good point.
like when you're like building enthusiasm, or you are enthusiastic about something, you can there's sort of this overarching like like you're picturing yourself in a certain place at a certain time and how you're going to feel in that moment, and like how good that's going to feel and how good it's going to be. Like, and so if you can put yourself in that place of like, how great it's going to be. I'm going to be living in New York. I'm going to be, around really talented designers, not just like, obviously I'm going to be working for a really talented designer, but I'm also going to be around a lot of people. Like, I'm going to be getting to like look into the work and the process of this person that I really love looking at the work of on Instagram, like sort of build up that story.
Yeah.
And like that will build the enthusiasm around it.
That's a good point too. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
I think, yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think you got to kind of prep yourself, You got to kind of get excited before the call.
Maybe even do some jumping jacks.
That's true. That's true. Have you heard like, I think I mentioned this on an old podcast. So like, there's like tricks and tips to like things to do before interviews, just so that you're like pumped up and excited. Like if you do like the Superman pose where you put your hands on your hips and like look in the mirror and be like, you're gonna do a good job. And you go into the interview, and I don't know. I mean, it helps me personally, but or like if you smile, like if you make a fake smile, like if you just make it like if you just move your muscles to smile, I think there's this like psychological trick that you actually feel happier.
Right.
Like even though like there's nothing that's changed other than the muscles in your
Yeah.
face, I think the muscle signals like make your brain think that you're
Right.
happier.
One thing that I actually have found that is good for like when we record the podcast is if I listen to a really good conversation before we start the podcast. Like if I listen to a podcast where people are talking and they're talking concisely and they're talking enthusiastically or whatever it is, like it's a very interesting conversation that I'm listening to. Like that energy then goes into the podcast.
Yeah, I
You
like
know,
that. Yeah.
so I don't know how you apply that to interviews, but I think like I don't know if you can have a conversation with someone before you start the interview, just so that you get into the rhythm of talking. I don't know, maybe that would be beneficial, rather than just going into an interview having talked to nobody all day or like
Yeah. That's a good point too. Like especially if it's like a Zoom call or something.
yeah
If you are just if you've been like sitting in your room all day and the Zoom call is the very first time you speak words, I think you're gonna be a little rusty.
Yeah, it's kind of like how if you were to go like network or do whatever, like you always find like your first conversation is always kind of the most awkward conversation, but then once
Yeah.
you get into a rhythm and a flow, you can sort of bounce around from conversation to conversation, but it's just about getting that ball rolling initially.
Yeah.
But wait, so
Yeah.
you didn't pick the Rick Roller, and did you pick the
No.
person who had the background, the outdoor background?
I did. Yes.
Oh, okay. So that was the deciding factor.
Yeah, the nice nature scene outside. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep it anonymous for now. Just
Right.
things are
Out of yeah.
still kind of going around because
Yeah.
coronavirus. So it's still uh, uh, yeah, you get the point.
Have, have you considered sort of plan B if you're not able to? Well, are they in New York City?
They are. Yeah.
Okay, so that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Were you
I
Had you
definitely.
been, sorry, had you been considering anybody outside of New York City?
Yeah. Yeah. There was I like my top three. I think one of them would have had to move. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was a really hard decision. I think all 10 of them were like really good candidates. So it was hard to really narrow it down. But yeah, I'm excited for it. I mean, it's gonna be exciting to be able to like have someone else to bounce ideas off of and work on work on projects in the studio. So, um,
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully everything will blow over so we can keep moving on with our design lives and everything. So
Yeah, for sure. Um, that's cool. Those are some really good insights. Are there any more questions that
I
have
think
come in?
I think the one comment was people were asking on the Instagram live. They wanted to hear more detail about what makes a good project or what makes a bad project. I think, I think the thing is for me, and kind of like this goes back kind of what we were saying is like it needs to be understandable in that like first 5 seconds. If I
Right.
open up a website, I click on the very first. I open up a website. Here, I'll just walk you through my process. I open up a website. Usually, it's some sort of grid layout or something. You see a couple projects on the homepage, and I click on the one that looks most interesting to me. And I think most interesting to me, probably pertains to houseware, things that I'm interested in personally, and also just a thing that has like a nice photograph. If it's like a bad photograph of like if it's a dimly lit room and there's like a prototype in there, like I'm not gonna click on that. If it's like a nice clean like detail of a chair, then hey, I'll probably click on that.
Yeah. Those
So
photos are like if somebody snuck up on a prototype.
right, exactly.
Like
What you doing in there? So I'll click on that, and then I'll scroll through for another like 5 seconds, and I really just want to get the gist. Like, I really want to see like, what is this idea? What's this idea about? Um, and if there is a bunch of like, bunch of images, bunch of like research, bunch of like text, bunch of like graphics plopped over images, I don't want to look at that. That's not pleasing to my eye. Like, you look at Apple's website, everything's beautiful, everything's clean, it's very nicely composed.
Everything's boring.
Yes, I think the ideas are not there. That's not a good comparison. But if you had the cleanness and simpleness of conveying your project that Apple has on their website, paired with a really strong idea, then I think that would stand out a lot to me. So, I don't know. Hopefully
Yeah.
that sheds some light on projects that were good versus bad.
I have maybe one last question,
Yeah.
and that is, do you think that you can sense enthusiasm like in a portfolio? I mean,
That's a good question.
you can certainly sometimes sense a person's personality. Like those are always the portfolios that I am like gravitate towards, is where I can sort of sense what this person's going to be like,
Yeah.
because I feel like I mean, it's just really impressive because it's really hard to capture who you are as a designer through the standard portfolio.
I think I can definitely see portfolios of passionate people versus
Hmm.
portfolios of people that just want a job,
Right.
or like just are doing the projects like because the professor told them to do the projects. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
Like like I saw a lot of this. There was like a project that someone did because it was like a school. I mean, that's obviously why you're in school, to do school projects. But what I mean is like, I think when you're really passionate about something, you have kind of a different mindset about school, where you're doing this school project for yourself to like show the world, right? And not just to get a grade. Um, and I think that definitely shows up in portfolios.
Yeah.
When you kind of just see the riffraff of like, oh hey, professor told us to design a toaster, so I designed a toaster, and it looks like a Braun, you know, speaker or whatever. It's like,
Right.
you didn't even think about how to toast, right? You weren't even thinking like, how should I even toast this bread? You were just thinking, it needs to be a box, it needs to have a button, it needs to have a slider. Um, that is not impressive to anyone. So I think, sorry, I'm generalizing. That was not impressive to me for sure. I think
Yeah.
I think I'm looking for a lot more of a thought process and a lot more passion behind something. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking back to when I like looked at your portfolio for the first time before we ever met, and I felt like I got a sense of a personality in that was really captivating.
yeah,
And
that's a tough one.
it's really tough cuz
Because
I
when you're a
yeah.
student, you don't have that. You don't really have that formed yet. Like, you don't have like your style formed yet. So I guess I'm not talking about style. I'm more thinking of like passion, and I don't really know. Maybe we're getting too abstract with it, but I see what you're
Yeah.
saying.
Um I I keep coming up with other questions because I don't know, this is a good topic. Especially right now as people are graduating and
Yeah.
they're trying to figure things out. Um, I'm wondering, you just brought up this thing about the Braun toaster, like the toaster that's just kind of like obvious,
Yeah.
and so would you say that you would prefer somebody who you feel like is reaching, like they don't necessarily come up with like the absolute best solution, but you can feel that there's ambition, versus somebody who's just going like so clean and it just feels like they're checking off the boxes.
Yes, me personally, but that is just that's my view of the world, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think that's how I like to do my projects, and that's how I like other people to do their projects. But I definitely see the value of that kind of check the boxes, fill in the blank. I can go work at X, Y, and Z brand and, you know, be a CAD monkey. I think, well, maybe not CAD monkey. You know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to like downplay that. I definitely understand that those types of projects and those types of designers are an avenue to take. I think I definitely prefer that like out of the box thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this goes back to my point again about standing out. When you do these out of the box projects, when you rethink how toast can be toasted, you know,
It's
when you
always toast with you. How many slices of toast do you have a day, Nick?
I
How
wish
many?
I wish I had more. I have 2 slices of bagels. Well, I guess one bagel
One
sliced in
bagel,
half.
two. Yeah. Do you have a bagel guillotine? Do you have a bagel
No,
slicer?
no, I
You don't
just have
have
a
a
bread
bagel
knife.
slicer?
No, we don't need.
Actually,
I don't need a bagel slicer. Who needs a bagel slicer, James? Do you have a bagel
if
slicer?
you listen, Nick, if you ever have any hopes of opening a successful bagel franchise within New York City,
Baker's
I
Bagels.
I mean, come on. The checks write themselves.
Oh man, I
Uh,
it would be nice to have a bakery one day. That'd be cool.
yeah.
I
I think
definitely.
it would
I
probably be a nightmare though.
no, no, I wouldn't run it. I would hire someone to run it, but
You would hire an intern to run it.
maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think those out of the box projects help you stand out. I will say this though. I think it's good to have a balance of both the out of the box projects and the run of the mill. Hey, I can design, I can solve the problem. I can design for the brand. I
Yeah.
can do X, Y, and Z. I can render, I can CAD. I think if you have a mix of those, I think that builds a strong portfolio for the general job market because
Yeah.
one, you're going to be standing out, and then two, you're also showing off that hey, like if you need me to, I can sit down and knock a simple design
Yeah.
out.
Yeah, if I would say that there was one thing that was missing from my education, it was projects that were revolved around brands
Mm,
because most of it was just, prompts. It was prompts around problems or problem areas and not around, hey, like, we need you to design a new whatever for this company.
yeah. Well, I
And
actually I actually prefer that. I did not want to do the projects that were about brands in school.
yeah, but
I definitely see
I
the value.
think
I see the value of it.
I think there's a tremendous value in it. I mean, you're also speaking as a person who likes to take on a certain type of project. You're I wouldn't say that your career has been, well, actually right out of school your career was very brand focused.
Yeah.
But I think there are those people that will go into a brand environment where brand language is key, understanding brand language is key, and being able to execute something that feels familial with everything within that brand. And I also just think it's a good exercise for understanding how to build your own design languages if you were to start your own brand, because otherwise, like what is a better starting point than to try and emulate the brand of something more established
Yeah.
when it's like the old story about Hunter S. Thompson retyping The Great Gatsby to understand what it felt like to write the Great American Novel. It's
Interesting.
like why not? I mean, I think that there should be a good mixture within school of those brand focused, but then also just like, those pure design school, like, design thinking prompts.
Yeah. I agree. Um, that was good. I think
Yeah.
that was hopefully that was helpful to some people.
Are there any
Um,
other questions pop up?
I don't think there's questions. Plenty of comments in here. Um,
Yeah.
some funny comments, but um, is this? Oh, here's a question. Again, back to the portfolio. Portfolios are always a hot topic. Um, is the standard grid type portfolio a good way to go? Does breaking the grid stand out, or is it nice to know and see where you're going to navigate? I would say if you are not a expert web designer or developer or graphic designer, if you're not an expert in that space, just stick with the template. Like
Yeah.
keep it simple. Um, keep it simple with simple pictures on simple backdrops. Add your text not on top of the pictures, below the pictures or in between the pictures, however you want to do it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I would say keep it simple. I think there are definitely people out there that can break the norm and do some interesting themes and things that don't align to the grid. But you know, again, I'm looking at it for 30 seconds, and all I want to see is some cool stuff. Like
Yeah.
you know,
Um, yeah, I think it's important to understand the grid before you break it. And after a while, you'll start to gain some intuitions about how to work with the grid, or how like you don't really need to work with the grid because you can sort of perceive that organization. Um, but um, this is kind of unrelated, but it was something that I thought of, when we were working at Control Labs. So this is kind of a separate thing, but I think it could also apply to students and maybe even professionals. Um, uh, the graphic designer we brought in, who's your roommate? What's his name?
housemate. Jack.
Housemate.
Jack. Yeah.
Jack. So Jack, when he was designing the Control Labs logos, one of the pages that he would put within his proposals was the logo amongst other logos, like other
To compare.
companies,
Yeah, yeah.
to compare and to see how it sort of fits in, or
Fits in
yeah,
or
how
stands out.
how it
Yeah,
fits in or stands out. And I thought that was so interesting, and I think I don't know if any industrial designers do that. Is
that's
like at
true.
the during a project, putting your product in the middle of, like, once everybody creates the matrix,
Yeah,
the product matrix of where the opportunity is, but nobody I know of ever plops the product back into the matrix and is like does this how does this compare to all of these other products around it? How does it stand out? Does it not stand out? Does it? Yeah,
that
I
is
thought that was really interesting.
I really like that. Yeah, I have never done that, and I never had that realization until now. Um, hmm.
But that could be cool to see in a portfolio, and it's also a great way to measure yourself against the competition. Is like you're working on those renderings, and like how does it really match up to other things on the market? Like, does it feel resolved? Does it
Yeah,
feel as resolved as the things that are out on the market?
yeah,
Because that will also boost the perception of your work.
for sure.
Um, you know, just a thought.
No, that's great. I think there was a few more questions in here if we want to answer them.
Yeah, let's do it.
We have Jay Live. They say, "What do you think is your most influential project?"
Influential project.
I think there's two sides to this coin. One is what is the most influential to you personally, and the other
Oh
is
yeah.
what do you think is most influential as like a societal thing.
Mm.
I mean, I think the project that we worked on for Control Labs, I think is probably going to be influential on a society level.
Yeah.
I know we can't talk about it too much, but definitely check out the company if you're interested. It's on our
Yeah, for
website.
sure.
Um, I don't know about a personal level. That's an interesting one. What's the most influential on a personal level?
Yeah. So this is interesting because this is actually something that I've been diving back into recently. Um, is just and I think it's going to feed into my talk tomorrow with Lens with advanced design. But I've been really like going back to my like the roots of like basically when I started to notice design and what I was excited about.
Yeah.
Because I think one thing that we don't ruminate on enough, I think, as designers is first that first time where you notice design or just what got you excited about products when you weren't a designer. You know? Like
Hmm.
I and that's something that I've been thinking about a lot recently. And also just like what got me interested in design in the first place. And I've probably told this story before on the podcast, but it's this very specific product when I worked at this toy store in Ocean City, New Jersey, and it's called Astro
Astro
Jacks.
Jacks. Yeah, man. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
So one of the things that I think I'm going to show tomorrow in my talk is like I bought Astro Jacks when they were a really tiny company and they hadn't yet gotten acquired, I don't think. Or it was that, or they didn't have a designer yet, and so I got this, you know, packaging, this original packaging that was just like, it was so, I don't know, it was amateur hour, but the product itself I still really loved and still like really enjoyed using. But the next summer, when I was working at the toy store, Astrojack suddenly had a commercial out, and they had hired. I think they had hired this designer at this point, whose name we should shout this guy out for this podcast. His name is Alex Hochstrasse, and he's a Swiss designer. But the packaging, like everything about this, the holistic experience was just so good. It was so good. It caught my attention. Like I would just sit there at the toy store and stare at these products because I was just enamored. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't like I don't know. I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was. I think I was starting to build up like maybe some vocabulary about like why I thought these products were so interesting. And just skill toys in general got me really excited.
I mean,
Um,
I had a pair of Astro Jacks. I
which
really,
ones? Do you know?
they were clear and purple.
Yeah.
I believe they were purple.
Okay, so those are the Venus.
I love how you know
I
all of them. That's
oh
hilarious.
yeah,
Um,
I've actually gone online and started like to track down some of the original stuff to get stuff in the original packaging
yeah,
because it was such a huge influence on me.
interesting. And
Um,
for those who aren't familiar, Astro Jacks are like two spheres and then fixed with
yeah,
a rope, and then in the middle is a sphere that moves, and it's just
yeah.
like again a skill toy, like James said. So,
It's kind of a juggling toy.
yeah, like a
It's
yo-yo.
somewhere between juggling and yo-yoing. So yeah, but
That's not a project though. That's not something you did, James. That's something
no,
that
no,
you
no.
like.
That's the influential product.
Oh,
That's the thing that was influential on me.
interesting. The person said it was. The person asked about projects, like projects you've done.
But you were the one who said, you, Nick, you said that could be taken two ways: projects that you admire and projects that you've done.
Okay, I was fair enough. I think what I meant is like, what is a project that you have done that you personally grew from, and then what is a project that you have done that had the most impact, like had the most influence on others. So
Oh,
I answered our project that we had the most influence on was our Control Labs project.
right.
For me personally, I kind of feel like it's my first studio project, like my tilting light. Is that weird? That's my first one that was the most influential. I mean, I guess that makes
No.
sense. It makes sense because it's like going from 0 to 90 or whatever. Um,
Yeah.
I mean that my tilting lamp was the one where I like really dove into Nata Fukasawa and like learned I don't know, I just learned about designers in the world. I don't know. It was kind of that eye-opening experience, but that was a school project, so.
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. Um, I think a project that had a lot of influence on me. I mean, yeah, the Control Labs project for sure. And I guess there is sort of like a studio project that kind of has a lot of the process around it and the process that we learned from it has been influential since then, which is the Form Families project.
Yeah, yeah.
So the one that Reed and I have done, we did our watering can project around, and but the reason that it's been so influential, not just in teaching us the form families that we learned, was just the idea that you could take an idea and pass it through a filter to come up with numerous variations on
Yeah.
product that could expose some areas of opportunity. So I think that was very influential. Like I think that led me to doing continuous line sketching because that was just a different kind of filter to put onto a project to find some new opportunities. And yeah, so that was pretty influential. Unfortunately, the project that I ended up with for that particular assignment was very phallic looking.
The curse of a designer, man.
So I passed that one through the triple X filter, essentially.
Oh, man.
But otherwise, yeah, very influential.
We have another question here, I think is a good one to kind of go off of. And I think there's also some uh, peripheral, tangential questions, this one. But this one comes from Tejisha. They say, how important is it to get work experience before starting a freelance career?
I feel like we've maybe answered this a similar kind of question, because I feel like we've talked about how we both kind of started out corporate. We,
Yeah.
we both started out with full-time jobs and then transitioned into freelance. I don't know that it's necessary. And actually, to bring some new information into this, I was just watching Michael DiTullo's video about what to do, like when you're getting a job, like
Right.
trying to get a job. And he actually didn't have a job for the first like 6 months out of school. And and so he had to pick up freelance work essentially. He ended up picking up some freelance work. And I think that you can go that route. I just feel like it's going to be really challenging
Yeah.
if you don't have any basis for working professionally.
Yeah. I mean, I have definitely always been on the side of you shouldn't go freelance straight out of school. The main reason is I think you just don't know how products are made. Like school doesn't teach you the entire ecosystem of how something goes from an idea to the store shelf.
Mm.
I mean, they teach you manufacturing processes. This is how stuff's injection molded, but they don't teach you that Karen from marketing wants it to be purple because her daughter like they don't teach you those nuances and those there's just a lot more that goes into it.
That is the design education we all missed. I'm imagining like a design obstacle course where you're trying to get your prototype to market, and it's like a physical obstacle course, and there's like a two-dimensional cutout of Karen that pops up. Uh-oh, Karen wants to make it purple because her daughter likes purple. What are you gonna do?
And then right after that, it's another Karen, and then she's like, "Oh, just kidding, yellow," and you got to switch it again. Oh man, yeah, yeah.
Um, sorry.
But yeah, I definitely think I would strongly recommend that you do full time work before you before you go freelance. And maybe that's an internship. Like maybe you get an internship after graduating. I mean, if you have zero internship experience and want to go freelance, like all the power to you. I just think it's going to be extremely hard uphill battle.
Right.
Um, I think I kind of want to write this into some other questions here because there's some interesting ones. Um, I think we got a few questions from the Discord, and this one comes from Lewis Makes. They say, "Is now a good time to start branching out as a freelancer or studio because of the coronavirus situation?"
Branching out in what sense?
I mean, I read this as a lot of people have lost their jobs, been furloughed, etc. And are they going to look for new jobs or should they just start freelancing? My first thought is like, I don't even know if it's necessarily a choice. I think more people are just going to be freelancers because of the economy. Like, I think that's the only option out there is that companies are not in the position to be able to hire a full-time designer right now. They're going to want to have that flexibility of like, oh, well, I can't, if I can't meet payroll, it's okay because I can just,
Mm.
you know, say stop to this freelancer or whatever. So I
I
definitely think it's going to be a trend, but I don't know. That's my novice opinion.
I have seen some companies post for designer roles right now, which I do think is really interesting. And like, how is that onboarding experience going to be
Yeah.
considering the state of things? But but yeah, I don't know. I was talking to somebody who got laid off, and they were saying, they kind of had it in their minds like, okay, the next 3 months are probably going to be pretty tricky to try and find a full-time job. So he was like, I'm just going to spend this time doing freelance work and working on my portfolio. Like it was just a very like, this is my plan. Like this is how far out I see things going, and so here's my plan. And of course he can adjust that plan on the fly, but I think it's good when things are so ambiguous to probably try and like set some boundaries
Yeah.
and set some like, this is how much time I'm going to dedicate to this, and then I'll change as things change. But it might be good and positive to set up some sort of framework for yourself.
Yeah. I also add on to that. I think especially if you're in the situation where you were a full-time designer, you lost your job, and really your only option right now is to freelance. I would agree. Like I think maybe you should just go all out. Just see how far you can push it because that's kind of what happened to me. I didn't lose my job. I quit my job, but you know, I intended to get a full-time job when I moved up to New York and it just never panned out. And I just kept taking on freelance work and all of a sudden I decided like, hey, why not just try it? I think especially if you are, obviously everyone has different, um, liabilities and things, whether that's, who you're responsible for and things like that. But if you have low responsibility and you lost your job, like I would definitely say go for it, try it.
Yeah, definitely.
I also want to add on another question to this, James, because there was someone that I believe messaged us through Instagram, but they had an interesting question that kind of rides into this how to, figure out in freelance / internship. But this question comes from Design by From, and they say, "What is the value of an internship / freelance work after being a full-time designer for several years?
Mm.
I have several years of packaging and display design, and I would love to transition to an agency with a more broader breadth of work. I don't know how to position myself for it." I thought this was an interesting question because if you had worked at like a packaging company for 3 years or so, and then wanted to do, say, industrial design studio, you wanted to move into like a consultancy, an ID consultancy, would you consider taking an internship just to get the experience?
I mean, I kind of tried that. I kind of tried when in my first year, I tried to get like I was at Lifetime Brands and I was not enjoying myself.
Yeah.
And so I tried to get an internship, and I don't know if there was just a miscommunication, but they were like it kind of almost seemed like they were not interested in hiring me as an intern. They were only interested like in like they were only talking about we don't have any junior designer positions available. And maybe I didn't just like hit the point home enough,
Yeah.
but
Were you
yeah,
trying to were you saying like, "Hey, I just want to work for you guys. I have
yeah.
really great skills. Like my skills are like senior level. Can I just work for you as an intern and I'll produce senior level quality?" Or was it like, "Hey guys, can I intern for you?" And then you never mentioned the entire other part.
Right, right. Well, this again, this was my first year out of school, so I wouldn't say I was going to produce senior level work for them. But I mean, I went in for an interview and everything, and it just didn't pan out.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't know. It's so hard, like, I'm kind of in this process of like, what's going on in LA, and how can I start to do some work out here. And some industries are just very difficult to get your foot in the door.
For sure.
And um and so I'm kind of in that process of figuring that out. I think it might just be like almost cold calling, but maybe not in the guise of looking for work, but just to connect.
Yeah. That's a tough thing. I don't know. Here's an interesting question. Would you, because I have thought about this before, right? Like, what would happen if I just like emailed, not to Fukasawa or Jasper Morrison and was like, "Hey, I'll work for you for free for a year.
Yeah.
Let me just go and work for you full time for free and learn the ropes and then be able to come back with all that knowledge and build on top of that and really, find that niche."
I mean, why not?
It's a good question. I don't know.
What? Why not? I mean, you could at least start a conversation, maybe. Try to start that conversation.
Yeah.
You don't know what's going to come of it. I mean, I say why not, and then like I don't know, for whatever reason I'm not brave enough to make those kind of choices and decisions, or do those kind of things. But I don't know. I don't see the detriment. Like, what's the worst that could happen in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely not a bad outcome per se. I mean, obviously they would get that. I'm sure they get that request often. I'm
Right,
sure that
right.
they get that email often of like, "Let me work for you for free. I'll do anything." Um, I'm sure they do.
The
Jasper and
the
Natsufukasawa for sure.
the desperate plea email.
Uh-huh. Um, I don't know. I think it definitely would be a challenge to even work for free for them, like to even get in there.
I have one suggestion for you, Nick.
What's that?
To Rick roll Jasper Morrison.
Yes. Yes.
I
I don't know
think
if you would get it, but I
I
I
think
think
that's your ticket.
that's the only way to end for sure.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. It's really interesting. That whole aspect of the design industry is a big mystery to me. I
Which
don't
aspect?
know.
Which aspect?
Just like the working for the star designer aspect.
Yeah, star designer area for sure.
Like how does one get to that position?
Yeah.
We should try to track somebody down.
Well, I call up Karima Shade. It's our. I feel like that's our closest lead. I feel like
Creamy,
I
how
feel
you
like
doing?
I feel like Karim would be open to the podcast. We've never asked him, but
Yeah. but I don't know.
I don't
But
even know.
what was
Did we?
what was the original question? Did we answer it?
Well, the question was what's the value of doing internship slash freelance work, um, before or after doing this packaging thing. I mean, I think there's a lot of value there. Like, I would definitely suggest, if anything, try to get a freelance job doing ID. Whoever this person is probably doesn't have a strong ID portfolio. And this is your chance to do some personal projects, right? Do some personal projects and make a website, really try to hone in on that portfolio. And if you can do the freelance thing, great. If not, do the personal projects. And, you know, maybe it's worth it to quit your job and just go work for someone for free. I don't know the financial situation there, but it could be valuable.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, I think we should wrap it up, Nick.
Okay.
But shout out of the week. I mentioned it earlier.
Oh, we did? We didn't
Yeah.
even talk about it.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out Alex Hochstrasse, who is the founder of Molluck, Moluk. He does a lot of toy design. Molluck is specifically for kind of like toddler age, more like 0 to 5, 0 to 6, but just just an excellent designer. Talk about somebody, we should get Alex on here because he worked for Naoto.
Really?
Yeah, he worked for
Wow.
Naoto for a little while. And but he's just got exceptional work.
Where is he located?
He's in Switzerland.
Okay.
He's in Zurich, Switzerland. He's got exceptional work. He does just really, it's minimal but with tremendous character, and everything is very active. Everything is very interactive that he does, and it's just really quality design work. And when you're looking for stuff for kids of that age, it's nice to see somebody that's sort of cutting out the typical noise that you see within that industry and doing just solid, essential design.
Yeah, for sure.
So anyway,
That's awesome.
shout out to Alex.
Yeah, we'll link to them, and yeah, I mean, we try new things. Trying the Instagram Live thing. I don't know if we'll do IG Live podcast again. Maybe we'll go back to Zoom. I don't know. New times. We're figuring things out. But
Yeah.
sounds good. All right. As always, I'm at Nicky Baker.
And I'm at iDrawing Receipts.
Peace.
Later.